friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Aireonna, joining you live from Las Vegas. Viva Las Vegas. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Nice cars, there we go. The 49ers just won their second preseason game, 22-19, sending the Raiders, I was gonna say packing, but the 49ers are the ones, much like me, hopping on a flight tonight back to the Bay Area. Is it great that the 49ers won this preseason game? Yes, it was a walk-off field goal by Jake Moody, 59 yards, which was impressive, and Jake Moody needed to make it, because if he did not make it, Kyle Shanahan would have left him here in Vegas. He was 5 for 6, but he missed a 55-yard field goal earlier on in the game, and then the next kick that he had to make after that was a 26-yard field goal. He missed the 55-yarder wide left. Wouldn't have made it even if it was a 30-yarder. It was short and way left, so he missed that one horribly. Then he almost missed a 26-yard field goal. Luckily it went in, but I mean, by the skin on his toes, is that what they say? Hair on his toes. By the hair on his toes, Jake Moody made the 26-yarder. Then for all the dramatics to show up, the 49ers ended up getting the ball with about 13 seconds left in the game. Carter Bradley got them in field goal range, and then Jake Moody ended up making his longest kick ever, which is 59 yards. Let me know if this is too mean. I wanted him to miss it, because if he would have missed it, they would have left him here in Vegas. That's hyperbolic. They would have obviously let him, come back. But I think that they would have gone and signed Greg Joseph, who was the kicker that won the kicking competition during training camp. Greg Joseph made more kicks than Jake Moody did in training camp, and for some reason they ended up releasing Greg Joseph and not Jake Moody. So I felt like if he would have missed the game-losing field goal, they would have been like, yep, he cannot deal with pressure, we got to let him go. But because he made it, Kyle Shanahan just talked to the pressers, and he was like, there's what's there to complain about? He made 5 of 6 of his kicks, and it's like, okay, well, the one that he missed was horrible. Also, one of the 5 that he did make was almost a miss. Jake Moody is going to be on the team for as long as Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are here, because he was a 3rd-round draft pick, and they absolutely, especially with all their injuries and the lack of depth they have, they cannot admit that they wasted a 3rd-round pick, because that's what it was, a 3rd-round pick wasted, when they could have gotten a field goal kicker off the street that would do as good or better than Jake Moody. And they need that depth right now, especially with all their injuries. So in order to not have to take so much heat for making a horrible draft choice, they're going to give Jake Moody all the opportunities and chances that they can. I'm really sweating, wow. And Jake Moody, he is your kicker, 49er fans, for the next 10 years. Does that drive me crazy? It absolutely does, as a 49er fan myself. But let's talk about, before we get into more of the injuries, let's talk about some positives really quickly. Brock Purdy did play in this game. He was only in for about 12 plays, which is about the amount of time that he was in for the second preseason game last year. Kyle Shanahan normally doesn't like to play his starters that much, but for what he was in, he looked really, really good. So for the first drive he was in, or first quarter he was in, first drive, for the first drive, not the first quarter, sorry. He was 5 of 7 for 66 yards. He had no Trent Williams. Connor Colby, the 7th round draft pick, was starting because, like I said, injuries. But Brock Purdy marched down the field. He looked really good, even without Trent Williams, even without Christian McCaffrey. His first 3 completions were to Ricky Pearsall. The Ricky Pearsall Brock Purdy connection looks really solid. If Ricky can stay healthy, I would bet that Ricky is going to lead the 49ers wide receivers in targets. He's going to be, him and Brock Purdy have an excellent connection. He's going to be targeted the most as long as he can stay on the field. So cross our fingers for health for Ricky Pearsall. But yeah, that was, like I said, Brock Purdy, he had a 100.1 passer rating. He did pretty good. Mac Jones had a horrible interception that was kind of straight to a linebacker he didn't see. But aside from the horrible interception, I'm seeing 49er fans. People are coming back from the game now. whoop whoop, go Niners. I actually thought Mac Jones looked good. Like as a backup quarterback. He obviously made the horrible straight to a linebacker interception, but for the most part he executed the system. I think he was 14 of 17. He might have actually played a little bit longer because I took that at halftime, and I think he played the third quarter too before they brought Carter Bradley in. So I think he did even better than that. But Mac Jones looked solid. He's not as good as Brock Purdy, but he can execute Kyle Shanahan's system better than he could execute the Patriots. Or I don't know, I guess he did play well his rookie year with the Patriots, but outside of his rookie year with the Patriots and then definitely in Jacksonville, he did not look good. So far, Kyle knows how to dial up plays, get him easy gimme throws. And he also threw, I think, 2 sideline down the field passes really well. Speaking of 49er fans, I just saw one throw up in front of me. Ew. Vegas is kind of a gross place. If you can tell, I'm breaking out, mostly because of sweating, but also because I think everything that you touch has a million germs, and I'm washing my hands like crazy. But hopefully he's enjoying his day since Brock Purdy looked good, Mac Jones, their backup, looked okay, and the 49ers won. Okay, was I positive enough? Can I get into some negatives? No. Let me do one more positive. Okay, I wrote down most improved since preseason game 1. I said Carter Bradley. Carter Bradley actually played really well today, which was hilarious. I actually had a tweet go viral last game where I said, get Carter Bradley the hell off my team now, because he was playing horrible last week. This week he was giving his receivers an opportunity. Him and Robbie Chosen, the wide receiver that I think is going to end up making the team since they have so many injuries. He's in his 9th year in the NFL, really bounced around. Last year he was with the Dolphins, had I think 3 targets. The 49ers had signed him for about 15 days during training camp last year before he ended up going to the Dolphins. But Carter Bradley looked great, and then he was my number 1, and then my number 4, as I just said, was Robbie Chosen. He had this really nice 30-yard. Carter Bradley threw it 30 yards down the field, but it was a little bit high and over him. Robbie Chosen, laid out and grabbed it. Jake Tongas also had a pass like that, but that one was actually even more impressive. I put Robbie Chosen on the most improved because he got way more targets than Jake Tongas, and I do think he has a real shot of making the roster just with all their injuries. But yeah, that it was in the third quarter. Third quarter? No, it was in the fourth quarter. I don't know what I'm thinking. But Jake Tongas, I mean, there was 2 minutes left. It was very, he could have mailed it in, and you could tell, for him, this is, an important game. He knows that there's scouts at that game watching, so if he does, he doesn't make the 53-man roster for the 49ers, there was other teams there watching. That's what happens in these preseason games. Obviously, your own team is scouting you, but other teams send scouts to all the preseason games because if you get cut from the 90-man roster, there's another team that might want to bring you in. I don't know if Jake will make the 53 when I think of the tight ends. They did just let go of Ross Dwelly when they had the opportunity to let go of him, so I'm happy that they seem to be giving more favor to youth, because Jake is obviously a lot younger than Ross Dwelly. We love Ross Dwelly, but we know that he doesn't really do much. So really impressive catch by Jake, really impressive catches by Robbie Chosen. The 30-yard one down the field in particular was great. Carter Bradley, most improved. Nick Martin, Kyle Shanahan even talked about this in his post-game. Nick Martin was great today. He was blitzing. And by the way, I highlighted him last week. I thought he looked super aggressive and physical and not scared, which is what you want out of a linebacker. But he just kept missing his targets. A guy would be running there, and Nick Martin was so aggressive. He would outrun the guy or go to tackle and end up tackling behind or in front of him. And it's okay, he had 6 missed tackles in preseason game 1. This game, his tackles were actually landing, which is important, but he kept that same aggressiveness. And then also Robert Saleh, who I'm so glad is back, was using him in the blitz, and he got a sack on third down, which was incredible. So I think Nick Martin has the opportunity to end up being even better probably than D Winners, but it'll take some time. like right now, I think it's D Winners. Marcus Siegel was great. I didn't have him in the most improved because he was great in preseason game 1. He's definitely ahead of Nick Martin in the ranking, and I'm glad that Marquis Siegel was able to go today because he was injured during the last game, but he was not badly injured, so he could go today. So both linebackers, Marquis Siegel and Nick Martin, looking good. I do think Nick Martin will stay as a depth linebacker behind Marquis Siegel, behind obviously Fred Warner, and behind D Winners, maybe even behind Jair Brown. But yeah, I really, really like his physicality. He's definitely going to make the 53-man roster and either be, starting if there's injuries at linebackers, or if not, probably starting next year. Because he has great spirit to him. You can really tell why Robert Saleh liked him. So my number 3 was Nick Zakelj, because I actually thought Nick Zakelj was doing pretty good on the offensive line. But then in the fourth quarter, they moved him to center, and he cannot play center. And I literally have most improved since preseason game 1. And then I have number 3 is Nick Zakelj, and then I have never mind. And then I said he can't play center. He got a penalty for not knowing the snap count, which, how do you not know the snap count as the center? Like, that's your one job. You're the one that's snapping the ball. So that is another regression the 49ers had. I know I talked a lot about guys who did better than most improved since preseason 1. There was a lot of regression, and injuries were one, obviously, but then penalties were huge. 49ers had so many penalties this game, where last week I literally had written down on the pros that they had played a clean game. Not this game. They had false start after false start. They had holding. They had roughing the passer, freaking center not knowing the snap count. So, okay, let's move on from. Oh, and then I also put for regression. These are my notes, by the way. Regression. Spencer Burford played awful. He had a holding. He had a holding call, and then directly the next snap after his holding call, he had a false start. 49ers cannot win a lot of games if Spencer Burford is playing. So let's cross our fingers that Trent Williams stays healthy. Obviously, Trent Williams wasn't playing because of vet day. Neither did Nick Bosa or Christian McCaffrey or Kittle or Kyle Juszczyk. There's probably more that I'm missing, but those are veterans who are just being held out as they're being precautionary because these guys are old and they don't want to put too much wear and tear on their tires. The negative is there was 5 49ers that were drafted this year, top 7 draft picks this year, that did not play, and they did not play due to injury. So who didn't play due to injury? Defensive tackle, first round, pick number 11, Mykel Williams, knee injury, did not participate. We hate that. Could not play because he was so badly injured. Cornerback Upton Stout, he also didn't play because of his calf. Last week, I really highlighted Chase Lucas, the backup cornerback. He's a depth piece. Kyle Shanahan was asked about him after and kind of poo-pooed him a little bit, so I think he's going to make the 53 but stay as a backup. But he was great again today. He was all over the field again. He had an interception. Trent Williams was talking on the TV and actually said that in team meetings, Chase Lucas called last night. He said, I'm going to have an interception tomorrow. So good for Chase Lucas. He's making a case for him to be a starter, and definitely making a case for him to make the 53-man roster. But yeah, Upton Stout, he was out with a calf injury. And then defensive tackle, CJ West, he hyperextended his knee in the joint practices yesterday. So that is a bummer, or the day before yesterday. So that's a bummer. He's going to be out, according to Kyle, it could be multiple weeks, which isn't good because the 49ers play football in 3 weeks. So I don't know how many multiple is, but hopefully play football that matters, week 1. So hopefully all he means by that is he's not going to play against the Chargers this week, and he'll be back the following week getting ready to go against the Seahawks in Seattle for game 1. Then obviously Jordan Watkins out with his high ankle sprain. Last week Kyle said it could be up to a month. Once again, I don't know if he'll be back by week 1, so that is scary. Jordan James had surgery on his finger earlier this week, so he is also out for a couple weeks. Kyle was asked about these injuries. I don't know if you've seen the discourse on Twitter, but the other teams around the NFL, the rule is that you can practice for 2 hours and 30 minutes, but there's also like some caveats where stretching doesn't count, intel, walk-through intel, like as long as you're not actually participating in physical activity, if you're just like going over it, taking the mental reps, all those things don't count towards the time. And so the 49ers, when they went against the Raiders they've also been tackling. So the 49ers asked the Raiders to not tackle. They didn't want to be as physical because they didn't want to lose more guys, and to do shorter practices. They ended up practicing for about 2 hours and 30 minutes. This is compared to the 49ers, who normally practice for 90 minutes. Also, both the Broncos, who were at Levi's last week, and the Raiders, where the 49ers are at now, they both participate in static stretching. They end up stretching for about 30 minutes, including static and dynamic warm-ups and cool-downs. These are things that the 49ers do not do. They do some dynamic stretching to start, and it's usually individual before they actually go out there. And then they have about 10 minutes where they kind of walk through, but they're not, as a group, participating in static or dynamic stretching. This is a really big issue, being that the 49ers are consistently one of the most injured teams under Kyle Shanahan throughout all 7 years that he's been here. So if other teams are practicing for longer and allowing time for proper warm-up and cool down within those practices, the 49ers should also be doing that. I understand that maybe you don't want to overwork someone in practice, but there is something to developing a callus. And at least for me, I know I participated in sports all throughout college, which obviously isn't professional level, but for me, properly warming up made it so I could perform better when I was on the field. And then properly cooling down made it so I could recover for the rest of the day and be good to go the next day. If the 49ers are not prioritizing and spending a lot of time, that they, like I said, they're allowed to have 2.5 hours, but without stretching and without intel, like it adds up to, the NFL allows you to basically work as a team for 4 to 4.5 hours. The Raiders and the Broncos both have longer practices than the 49ers, and they've had that all off season and for multiple years. The 49ers, for some reason, only do 90-minute practices. They actually had their longest practice against the Broncos, and for the Broncos, that was one of their shorter practices. Maybe it's because like they're like I said, stretching on their own, so their practice is like when they're going full speed. But what I would say is a good way to get injured is when you're not properly warmed up, and then all of a sudden you're trying to do explosive movements or rushing explosive movements. Like even if it's during the practice, if you're like going all out sprinting, there's a difference between giving yourself 2 minutes to cool down and recover and then going again versus giving yourself 30 seconds and then going again. That's putting a lot more wear and tear and stress on your body. So if I was the 49ers, if I'm the strength and conditioning coach, I'm taking feedback from these other teams that are less injured, and I'm extending my practices. I'm allowing more time for warm up and cool down before and after, but also in between practice moves. It's frustrating that I feel like people, if the 49ers are, do poorly this year, they're going to blame injury luck. And some of these things are obviously bad luck. We're going to get into the injuries of today's game, and a lot of them, in my opinion, are not preventable. But when it comes to soft tissue injuries in practice, there are things that you can do to help minimize your chance of these things happening. And like I said, when you're consistently one of the most injured teams in the NFL, it stops being about luck and it starts being a pattern that you, as a coach, Kyle Shanahan in the front of Jed York, the front of the 49ers, they need to do some self-evaluation and go, okay, this is no longer a fluke. There's something that we're not doing or that we are doing that's causing this. So lots of injuries. Upsetting to see those 5 draft picks, all 5 from this year, not participating. Luckily, knock on wood, it hasn't been like season-ending injuries. But, that almost makes it more frustrating because these injuries are things that should be preventable. So let's talk about who went down in today's game. And these are more, I will say, flukes. Right, although we'll get into it. I'll ask you if you agree. Dominic Puni, right guard, he went down with a knee injury. Kyle Shanahan said it could be a PCL. He thinks it's going to be a couple weeks at minimum, but hopefully it's nothing too serious. He was sitting on the bench without a brace on his knee for the remainder of the game after he went out. And I have an ant on me, and that scares me. I don't want to get bit out here in the desert. No, squirrels don't exist here. It's like too hot for squirrels to exist. It's just like lizards and bugs. Okay. Dominic Puni went out with a knee injury in today's game. He was playing special teams, which I think is wild, and this is where I think maybe it could have been preventable. It was on a field goal, and I don't know if Dominic Puni needs to be on the field goal unit. He's a starting offensive lineman. That should be for backups like Nick Zakelj or a newer rookie like Connor Colby. Why does Dominic Puni need to be like on special teams? Special teams, you're either a special teams player, or if you're a starter but also on special teams, it means like you're trying to work your way into solidifying your position. Dominic Puni's position is completely solidified, but for some reason, maybe because of injuries, maybe because of poor planning, Kyle Shanahan had him out there on a field goal unit kickoff. So he was playing, ended up getting his leg rolled up on. There's a video clip of it. It's kind of confusing. There's one leg, his left leg, that a Raiders player ended up falling on. But also when he falls on that leg, Dominic Puni, because there's all of a sudden a man crushing him, falls kind of over, and his other leg gets kind of mangled within a pile of bodies. So we're not exactly sure which leg it is yet. Hopefully Kyle Shanahan will say. But like I said, it's good news that he wasn't like in the training facility. A lot of times if it's like an ACL or something serious, you're not seen again. You are in the trainer's room. They are, wrapping your leg up. They're putting a bunch of, ice on it, a brace on it, something like that, and trying to make it so you can fly home. Dominic Puni walked out. This is another good sign. He wasn't like carted off. He jogged off of the field after being in that pile on his own volition, and then he ended up leaving, the game, going in the tunnel, but came right back out with no brace and watched the rest of the game. So hopefully it's good news, but Kyle Shanahan did suggest that it could be a PCL, which is, not. I was hoping for more of like a bone bruise, something even less. But sorry, my notes were flying all over the place. So that's it for Dominic Puni. Then Patrick Taylor Jr. today ended up being ruled out about 17 minutes into the game with a shoulder injury. So that's another running back on. If you are keeping count, Isaac Guerrero, they have Christian McCaffrey, who struggled all last year with injury, but is healthy now. Right behind him, they have Isaac Guerrero, who's out with a shoulder injury, Kyle said won't be back for at least a couple weeks. Then right behind him, you have Jordan James, who was their higher drafted running back. He had surgery this week, so he's out for a couple weeks. Then you had Patrick Taylor Jr., who was on the team, a veteran last year as like the fourth stringer. He runs upright, which I think subjects his body to more brutal hits. Although I'm not sure. He ended up hurting his shoulder. He has a shoulder injury. And I feel like even if you're like cuddled over with the ball, like it's still going to hurt. But he hurt his shoulder. The way that Kyle Shanahan was talking about it, he thinks it's going to be a week to 3 weeks. So hopefully more like a week, because who are their running backs? They have no one for their practice. Like they're supposed to have practice in 2 days, 1 day back in the Bay Area, and they have no running backs. No running backs are healthy, because then this is the biggest bummer, in my opinion. Corey Kiner, who had an excellent game one, and who I said in my instant reaction of game one that the 49ers had to be careful, because they ran Corey Kiner all the way through the third quarter. And then late in the third quarter, they ended up bringing the running back, Abdul, something with an A. He came in for like one play, really, really badly hurt his knee. He's out for the entire year now. They ended up putting Corey Kiner back in because no other running backs were up and ready. And I remember I was like, ooh, I don't think that's good. Like, he just cooled down. Like, talking about cooling down and warming up, like this guy was running all game. You take him out, he thinks he's going to be out for the game, so he's not trying to stay warm, and all of a sudden you're putting him back in. He started this game in the preseason. Corey Kiner looked incredible. He had this 19-yard run that was just great, and you're thinking this is going to be the backup behind Christian McCaffrey. Like, move over Isaac Rendo. Isaac Rendo, he played wide receiver at college, so I definitely think he's going to be involved in like the running and passing game. But when you see Corey Kiner, you're like, that is a running back. Downhill, physical running back. Really jukes guys, finds holes, undrafted guys. The 49ers, I don't know why, are so good with these undrafted running backs. They should never draft running backs in the third round, because the undrafted ones always end up being the best dude. He left with an ankle injury and literally immediately rolled out for the entire game. The reason that scares me, usually if it's like just a rolled ankle, they'll be questionable. For example, Dominic Puni, when he first went out, was questionable. Then he was ruled out for the rest of the game. Patrick Taylor, when he was ruled out with his shoulder injury, it came out as questionable. Then a couple minutes later, he was out for the full game. When Corey Kiner went out, immediately within a minute, he's out for the whole game. So that makes me worry that, did he break his ankle? Like, how serious does it have to be for you to immediately, I mean, hopefully it's more like a high ankle sprain. Obviously high ankle isn't good, but like compared to a break. I mean, I'd rather it be he just rolled it and it was just a normal ankle sprain. He's going to be fine within a couple days, and they were just being very precautious because it's preseason. I'm crossing my fingers. I really hope that's it. I have a lot of hope for Corey Kiner. I think he's going to be a great football player. I think he should make the team if he's healthy. Even if he's not healthy, all their running backs aren't healthy, so someone has to make the team. I like Corey Kiner. It really bums me out that he had to leave with an injury and then he was immediately rolled out. So I will be bringing you guys updates on what type of ankle injury that is for Corey Kiner. Kyle Shanahan, I did catch the beginning part of his press conference right before I was filming this, and the only injury that he addressed was Dominic Puni, and then he was asked about the running backs in general and how many of them are hurt, and he said luckily so many of them are a week to a month, so they don't feel a lot of pressure to like run out and grab a bunch of guys. Although I definitely expect that they're going to work out guys probably literally tomorrow so that they just have bodies in practice. But I don't know if they're going to go get guys that they necessarily think are going to make the roster. Because I think that they hope a lot of these guys, Garendo, Jordan James, Kiner, Patrick Taylor, Jr., all come back by the time week 1 starts, which is now about 3 weeks away. I think that's it. Let me double check all my notes that I have down here. Sorry, it is so hot. But yeah, I think that's my takeaway from the 49ers, Raiders joint practice and then preseason game. 49ers, luckily they pull off a win, 22-19. Although maybe a loss and Jake Moody not being on the team would be better. Is that horrible to say? So many people are like, this is going to be great for them. Maybe it will be. I will say he missed the 55-yard wide, super wide, super left, then almost missed the 26-yarder, but then he did make a 50-yarder, and then the very last one, which was the game winner literally within seconds, was 55. So his last 2 kicks were really good. Hopefully that gives him a lot of confidence and he can mellow out and make his kicks, because I don't think it's a lack of talent and ability and leg strength. I think it's all mental for him. So maybe I should be more positive. George Kittle, Trent Williams, Brock Purdy, they were on the sidelines screaming, one of the first to congratulate Jake Moody when he came back to the field. Kyle said something hilarious. I think it was Matt Barrows asked, what do you say to Jake Moody in a moment like that? And Kyle was like, I don't really talk to the kicker. And then a couple of questions later, someone said, wait, you don't talk to the kicker? And he was like, I just don't really have anything to say to him, and I don't want to, get him in his head even more. And it was kind of like, you're the coach, dude. I know that Kyle has said before he stays out of special teams and he lets the coordinator deal with that. Luckily, they got a new special teams coordinator in Bryant Boyer this offseason, who seems to be good. But it was kind of wild for Kyle just to be like, I don't, no words of encouragement, no pressure, no strategy. I don't try to ask him what's going on. I just don't talk to him. Oh, okay. but you like him enough that he's going to be on the team, even though he keeps, missed a kick in the Super Bowl, missed a bunch of kicks that cost them games last year. I think there's about 3 games that they missed or that they lost by 3 points or less. And in those games, Jake Moody all had a missed field goal, meaning that there was at least 3 games. Obviously, there was a bunch of other reasons, them not being able to score in the red zone, etc. But there was at least 3 games that came down to if Jake Moody made his kicks, the 49ers would have won. I don't know. Like I said, maybe it's all changing around for Jake Moody. He's changed his kicking strategy, and he made his last 2 kicks of the game. But I feel like the 49ers, unfortunately, are going to be stuck with Jake Moody for 10 years, and it's going to be up and down every single time he makes a kick. We're going to go, is this going to be the best kick ever, or is it going to be ridiculous? I hope you guys liked this video. I had to do it on my phone because the hotel has the worst Wi-Fi in the world. But I really, really appreciate you. It was fun to come to Vegas and to watch these guys in person and, see the differences, like I said, about the practices and how the different teams go about stretching and warming up and cooling down and handling the physicality of it all. Like, obviously, you don't. I get the 49ers logic. It's like, okay, if I'm tackling, you might be more likely to cause injury. But I know Dan Campbell, he was on like Hard Knocks. He's also a former player. Last year, he was talking to his Lions team, and he was like, you've got to build up that callus for the season, or else as soon as you do start tackling, you're going to start going down. This game might be, indicative of that. They had 3 guys go down today, and a lot of that is because it was a lot more physical than what they're used to. Their body's not used to that. It's a shock for them to actually be playing, full-on football. So give me a like, give me a subscribe. I really appreciate it, and I'll be doing a full actual live stream tomorrow. I'm taking a plane out tonight, so tomorrow I'll be back in the Bay Area, and I'll do a full live stream breaking down the pros and cons and everything we learned from the Raiders joint practice and preseason. Really appreciate you guys, and go Niners. Bye.